Have you ever noticed how, like, even with everything going on in your life, all the to-dos and all the stress, stepping outside just seems to make you feel better?
It's pretty amazing, right? Almost everyone has that feeling. But is it all in our heads, or is there actually something deeper going on?
Where that is exactly what we are diving into today, the connection between nature and happiness. We've got a whole stack of research, articles, personal stories, scientific studies, the whole shebang.
We're going to really try to understand this connection and see if there is any science behind this feeling or if it's just, a nice thought.
Right, exactly. So to kick things off, maybe let's talk about that feeling you get when you like step into a forest. You know that feeling, right? The quiet, the stillness, the fresh air, the sunlight filtering through the tree.
Oh,
And
absolutely. It's like a wave of calm washes over you. And actually, there is some really cool science behind that. Our bodies physically react to being in nature. Like, do you know that studies have actually shown that our cortisol levels drop when we're surrounded by nature?
cortisol, like the stress hormone.
Yeah, exactly. Cortisol is basically our body's alarm system. It goes up when we're stressed. And get this, when we're in nature, it goes down. Isn't that wild? Like, it's not just in our minds, our bodies actually become less stressed.
That's pretty incredible. And it makes that quote from John Muir, in every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks, even more meaningful.
Totally. And it's interesting. There's this whole practice in Japan called forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku. It's all about mindfully immersing yourself in the forest. It's not just a hike. It's about really connecting with nature using all your senses.
I've heard of that. It sounds so peaceful, but do they actually like study that forest
Um,
bathing?
there's been a ton of research on it, and what they're finding is that people who practice forest bathing show significantly lower stress levels than those who don't. It's like a reset button for our minds and bodies.
Like swapping the constant noise and stimulation of the city for the gentle sounds of nature? I can totally see how that would be a game changer.
Right. Like trading the honking horns for, birdsong and rustling leaves. It's a totally different sensory experience. And it's not just about stress reduction. Nature actually seems to boost our happy hormones too.
Oh yeah. Like what?
Well, studies have shown that being in nature increases levels of serotonin and dopamine in the brain.
Wait, those are like the feel-good chemicals, right? The ones that make us, feel happy and content.
Exactly. So it's like nature is giving us a natural dose of happiness. One article even called them nature's happy pills.
Ah, that's a good one. But is it just the sights and sounds that do that, or is there something else?
It's probably a combination of everything. The sights, the sounds, the smells, even. But there's also this fascinating thing called phytoncides.
Fighting what?
Phytoncides. They're these organic compounds that trees and plants release. It's kind of like their way of protecting themselves from insects and diseases.
Oh wow, so like their own little defense mechanism.
Right. But here's the cool part. When we breathe in these phytoncides, it seems to boost our immune system. There's research suggesting that they increase the activity of our natural killer cells, which are the cells that fight off infections.
No way. So not only does being in nature reduce stress and make us happier, it actually strengthens our immune systems too.
It's pretty incredible, right? There's a really well-known researcher in this field, Dr. Qing Li, and he's actually said that forest bathing is not just relaxation, it's medicine.
Wow, I like that. Forest bathing is medicine. So we've talked about all these immediate benefits, but I'm curious, like on a deeper level, why do we even have this connection with nature in the first place?
Well, if you think about it, for most of human history, we were deeply connected to nature.
Yeah.
We depended on it for survival, for food, for shelter. It makes sense that our brains and bodies would have evolved to not only survive in nature, but to thrive in it.
Right, like for our ancestors, it wasn't a weekend getaway. It was their entire life.
Exactly. So it's kind of baked into our DNA, this connection to nature. And even though we live in a much different world now, that connection is still there. It's like this deep-seated need that we have.
It's like our bodies are still wired to respond to nature in a positive way, even if we don't always realize it. And, we came across this interesting comment on Reddit. Someone was talking about how the lack of nature in our modern lives is actually creating a kind of deficit in our mental health.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I mean, think about hunter-gatherer societies. Their entire lives revolved around understanding and interacting with nature. They were completely in tune with the natural world.
It wasn't just about survival either. It was about their well-being, their spirituality, their sense of community. Like they understood this deep connection that we're only now starting to rediscover.
It's true. And you know that quote from Lauren Isley? He said, "If there is magic on this planet, it is contained in water." I feel like that really captures that sense of awe and wonder that we feel when we connect with nature. It's like this primal recognition, this feeling of belonging.
It's like coming home to something familiar, something essential. So we've talked about all the amazing benefits and the deep evolutionary roots of this connection. But what does all this mean for, the average person listening to this right now? Like, how do we actually bring more nature into our lives in a practical way?
That's the key question, right? It's not always about, going on a week-long wilderness retreat. It's about finding those small, everyday ways to incorporate nature into our routines.
Like what kind of things?
Well, for one, urban planners are starting to really understand the importance of green spaces in cities. Parks, community gardens, rooftop gardens, all of that. Those spaces are so vital for our well-being, for both our mental and physical health.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that even just having a little park near my apartment makes a huge difference. Just a little green space to escape to.
It makes a huge difference. And it's not just about cities either. There's a growing movement towards outdoor learning in schools. Studies are showing that kids who learn in natural environments have better focus, better creativity, they're even better problem solvers.
That makes sense. Being in nature is so stimulating for our brains. And what about for those of us who spend most of our time indoors? Like, what can we do to bring nature inside?
That's where biophilic design comes in. Have you heard of that?
I have, but I'm not totally sure what it is.
It's basically the idea of incorporating natural elements into our buildings and our homes. Things like natural light, natural materials like wood and stone, even just having houseplants. It's about creating spaces that feel more connected to the natural world.
So like bringing the outdoors in,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And it's not just about aesthetics either, right? It actually affects how we feel.
Exactly. It can reduce stress, improve our mood, even boost our productivity. And it can be especially powerful in places like hospitals and healthcare
Oh,
facilities.
yeah. What about that?
Well, they call them therapeutic landscapes. These are outdoor or indoor spaces in hospitals that are specifically designed to incorporate nature. Gardens, water features, views of nature, things like that.
That's a great idea. Hospitals can be so sterile and depressing sometimes.
I know. And studies have actually shown that patients who have access to these therapeutic landscapes recover faster, they experience less pain, they even have shorter hospital stays.
Wow. So there's a real tangible benefit to incorporating nature into healthcare settings. It's amazing how something as simple as a view of a garden can make such a difference.
It really is. And I think that speaks to the profound connection that we have with nature. It's not just a preference, it's something deeper. It's like this fundamental need that we all have.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what is like the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I would say it's this. We are deeply connected to nature, and that connection is good for us. It reduces our stress, boosts our immune system, makes us happier, and helps us heal. And it's not just a nice idea, it's backed up by science.
And by our own history as humans, we've evolved to thrive in nature. It's part of who we are. So to our listeners, I would say, take some time to connect with nature today. Go for a walk in the park, sit under a tree, listen to the birds. Even just opening a window and letting in some fresh air can make a difference.
It's all about finding those little ways to bring nature into our lives, even if we're busy. Because even a small dose of nature can have a huge impact on our well-being.
Absolutely. And that actually leads us to our final thought for you today. As you go about your day, think about this. What is one small, intentional way you can weave a little bit of nature, a little bit of that whispering woods into your routine? Even something small can make a big difference.
What subtle shifts can you make to feel more connected, more grounded, and ultimately happier?
We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Until then, take care.